Okay, so I will give you a little overview of my experiences on a modern Viking ship, Draken Harald Harfagre, that was built in Norway a couple of years ago. And this is how she looks. And here it's in Estonian because it's an old slide. Basically her measurements. She's 34 meters long and 7.5 meters wide, and the mast is 24 meters. So roughly to know her size. So the building started, I think, 2010, and they finished in 2012. And since then we did some test sailing with her Norwegian coastal waters and sailed her to Liverpool, England. But this was all just a preparation for the big expedition and voyage for last summer. So last summer we took this ship and we sailed her from Norway to America. But for that, before we did several rebuildings. This is also just kind of a good picture to show you the scale, like how big she is, because when she's in water it's a little bit difficult to understand. Just maybe some interesting information for sailors and shipbuilders, that from her original build, what was different when we were crossing the ocean is her deck was risen about 50 centimeters, so about half meters. Also the railing, just to make her hull less flexible, because Viking ships supposed to be flexible, but when we sailed across the North Sea the first time, the shipbuilders who were with us decided, or were afraid that she's too long and a bit too flexible with the high open sea waves. Yeah. So here you can see the old deck level, the dark one here, and the new one is up here. So it was that when we all, the crew arrived to Norway, we were about 33 people. The life wasn't so easy. It's that take your stuff and go on the sea. At first we all had to participate in getting her ready. We spent, I think, at least a week and long days with tarring the deck boards and finalizing all the electrical wiring work and railings and all the woodwork. So this was also a bit of a part for us for this. Also, we had to do some tests before we were allowed to go to sea on a sea. So we tested on our survival suits, and here you can see approximately the amount of people who were on board. And I think that next picture should be. And we all had to jump into the cold seawater in the end of April to be picked up with our follow ship. So when we were crossing the ocean, it was us and this follow ship, because the Norwegian authorities didn't allow us to go alone.
Like in the Viking days.
Yeah, like in the Viking days. Very authentic. And here I have another picture about the crew. The crew was I think 33 when we were crossing. We have another crew member, Roar, here, so he can tell everything that I'm lying to you about, so he can correct me, or you can ask the questions from him also. We were, about 13 of us were girls or women, and the rest of us were men, so about 1/3 women, and we were about 10 different nationalities, so very international crew. The ship itself was Norwegian, but we actually had only a few Norwegians on board. Most of us were Swedes, and also our captain, Björn Lander, he's Swedish.
Like in the Viking days.
So, for the expedition part, this was our route. We sailed out on 26th of April out to the North Sea, And some of you might ask that why did we go out in such a cold time? Didn't we dare to wait till it's summer and warmer and nicer out there around Iceland and Sweden? Yeah, but the reason is very simple, that on the North Atlantic for most of the year you get only westerly winds. And it's really hard to sail west when the winds are straight against you. But only in the end of April and May. And this has been so from the Viking times, because already you can find the descriptions about this in sagas, that this is the time to sail west. Only in this time of the year there's hope for long enough bursts of easterly winds that you can actually sail that way. And that's why we also chose this time. And yeah, we had some sailing against the wind also, so it wasn't so that we got this nice easterly wind, we just got little small bursts. So our original courageous plan was to sail from Norway all the way to Iceland. But the winds and the nature did its own corrections, and as we sailed out, we hit somewhat harsh weather right away. I don't remember much about it because it was the first night and I am the dedicated seasick girl on board. Somebody has to be. I took this hard role myself. So yeah, I'm always the first day I'm seasick, and then the rest of the day, come hell or high water, I'm okay. But you know, we encountered some rough seas and it tested our ship right away, breaking our first starboard side shroud. And also, yeah, we had like 11 more shrouds and also stays holding up the mast. We still decided that I think it's wiser to turn into the Shetland Islands, to Lerwick, and to repair this. For this, of course, we had to, as it was the bottommost shroud, we had to take off all the masts and make a new shroud and repair it. But it took us a couple of days and then we continued. The weather forecast was of course nice. Yeah, we should continue as soon as possible towards north or northwest to Iceland. Again, we had this courageous plan that we'll sail straight from Iceland. Many of our crew, of course, were silently whispering to Captain that maybe we could stop in Faroes, because everybody wanted to go to Faroes, because Faroes seems such a cool place, and nobody had been. And in our idea, we tried to follow the Viking routes and also see Viking settlements of the pieces of history in Faroes. But also, the weather forecast promised us perfect winds and nice weather. We hit our first big storm between Shetland and Faroes. And I remember that when the storm started, I was sleeping in a tent and I woke up from falling down to the mattress. So the waves were so high that they just threw me out of the mattress and then down back to the mattress. Actually going outside when it was time for my watch and then for me to be on deck working, it wasn't too bad. Especially when I looked out and saw our follow ship, because Viking ships are built so that they don't crash into the waves. They rather surf on top or roll, and they sit on top of the waves like a cork would. But our follow ship was rolling violently from side to side. So at that point I thought that the only way to cross North Sea or North Atlantic is on a Viking ship. Because yeah, we got a lot of movement, but looking at the other ship, it wasn't too bad. And then, yeah, by the beginning of May, we hit the Faroe Islands. We stopped in Tórshavn, and of course had to do some repairing there too, because as a wooden ship, you break stuff. If you don't want stuff to break. And then we continued there from there to Iceland, with actually finally really nice weather, and finally got some sunshine and not so much wind. So the last part to Iceland, we actually had to, with a heavy heart, switch on our engines and motor down to Iceland. We were a little bit afraid that the heavy weather will hit again, and south coast of Iceland is known to be really rough when it's stormy. And yeah, from Iceland we continued to Greenland and then to Newfoundland. So switch. This is a drawing from my crewmate, and the more north we went, the colder the weather. And also, I think that one of the main tasks, personal tasks for first couple of weeks for each of the crew member was to find the winning combination of layers, so that it's warm enough, that it kind of keeps dry, because the hope that you will stay dry was totally overrated. It didn't happen, and that you still could move and do the maneuvers. So this is a drawing of my crewmate Karin, and she came up to 8 layers, so this was all her layers. Most of it was, of course, wool, because wool keeps warm even if it's wet, and a very important thing, it doesn't start smelling as quickly as synthetic, and this is it becomes quite an important thing when you are at sea the whole week and there is no possibility to wash yourself, and often you maneuver the sail and you do some heavy work, you get sweaty very much. And as you see from here, we didn't wear traditional Viking clothing. We wore pretty much our modern clothing and modern storm gear or foul weather gear. In that way, this expedition wasn't so authentic, but we concentrated more on sailing, not on the actual lifestyle, just to take one step at a time. maybe all this together would have been a bit too much. So some of you, or many of you, know quite a lot about Viking ships, but maybe not all of you. The one very specific thing about Viking ship is that it's an open deck ship, so there is no rooms or no space under deck. Under deck is only storage, and everything that you have to get or that you have to use, whether it's food, like on this image, or your personal items, you have to dig out from under the deck. You have no covers, and everything has to be packed in watertight bags, because otherwise it's wet. We had this game on board all the time that we called the Schrödinger cat, so that you never knew if your cat is dead or alive. It means that you never knew if your bag is dry or wet, and sometimes you killed the cat just by opening the box. And yeah, I talked a little bit about working and the maneuvers. Yeah, as I told, there was 33 of us on board, and the rhythm of the life went so that we worked in 3 shifts, so about 10 people in a shift on a rotating way, so that you were 4 hours on watch and you had 8 hours off. So it meant you worked 4 hours on the daytime and 4 hours during the night times, because the waves and the winds won't ask if it's your bedtime or not. You have to work all the time. But during big maneuvers, like raising the sail, which you can see on this picture, demanded all hands on deck. That's why we had so many. Because if you compare the same size schooner, you can sail with 4 or 5 people, but this ship needs at least 30.
Sail altogether with yard weighs how much?
The sail and the yard weighs about 1.5 tons if it's dry. If it's wet, even more. Also, we had modern navigation equipment, And we have the navigation table here, and it's equipped with radars and all kind of modern stuff. And we also had engines to help us maneuver and to help us with knowing. Then all the maneuvers and all the sail handling was done by hand. There was no advantage there. So we used this big winch here and the poles, and the sail was risen. It was like this everyday gym, rising and lowering the sail and maneuvering it.
How many those poles you broke during this voyage? How many of those you broke this time, this summer?
I think we didn't break any. We broke some ropes,
Okay.
and one of them got cracked but didn't like quite broke. So we discarded one, but yeah, we managed to. At least I think so. I remember. But I think yeah, we repaired these ropes all the time because they tend to break.
What kind of light you had in the night time?
During the night time, basically we use no light. If you wanted to use a headlamp, then only red light was allowed because it doesn't destroy your nighttime vision. But it was still quite light. Even during the darkest hour, your eyes get used to the darkness and you can work without any additional light.
It's May.
Yeah, it was beginning of the May, so it was quite light already. I remember that at one night, just a little bit after Iceland, the weather or the waves suddenly got bigger and the wind rose. So we had all hands on deck during the night, just to lower the sail to take in the reef, and it was really light, and it was supposed to be the darkest time of the night. And so yeah, you could work pretty much. Yeah, we had some more pictures from the sail handling, and most of the maneuvers actually that we had to do is taking in and out the reefs or decreasing or increasing the sail area because of the changing winds. On open sea, getting up or down such a big sail is really a hassle, so we try to do these maneuvers as less as possible. We try to just do as little as possible. Yeah. For almost every rope you had to have 3 to 4 people who could do basically anything alone. And all the life, except sleeping, happened on deck. This was one of the main questions that was asked from us. So where do you eat and where do you sleep? You can see a little bit of the tent here and some of the previous pictures. We had a tent-like structure in the middle of the ship that provided us basically the only dry place on board, and this fitted about 22, 24 of us. So 2/3 could sleep in there. So, and we had 2 levels of bunk beds really next to your crewmates. But cooking and eating was all out in the deck, whatever weather, whatever wind. So sometimes you had to be really quick eating because otherwise the salad would flow off your spoon or fork before you eat it. And all the food we had to eat had to be liquid, because if it's not liquid it gets cold really, really quickly. So it also can happen that your food gets cold before you manage to get it from your plate to your mouth. From Faroe Islands I was working as a second cook on board, feeding all these 33 hungry sailors. So it was quite a challenge every day. I dreamt about the fridge that I can actually open and take things out, so they don't have to do acrobatical exercises 3 times a day to get some food stuff out from under the deck. And yeah, during the crossing, I think that every stop we made, we repaired something. I have some pictures here from repairing the sail. Just yesterday I talked about the sail with somebody, and then I started counting that yeah, we took the sail off in Shetland, in Faroes, in Iceland. So there was a lot of sail repairing. So it wasn't only a sailing trip, it was too much doing also all kind of handicrafts, and as we didn't have anybody else and we ourselves, so we also did it. And yeah, this is another thing that we did all the time. We were tensioning the shrouds. After the one broke, being either too loose or too tense, then we kept the keen eye on the shrouds all the time. But it could also be a pleasure. I think this is this moment just before Iceland, when we finally got some sun and not so many waves and winds, and we could bring out our instruments and play music and read and just lay around the deck. Because we happen to have quite a lot of musicians on board, so we started out with maybe 3-4 musical instruments, but we ended the season and we had over 20 musical instruments on board. Starting from violin, ending with keyboards and drums and everything. Sometimes people just gave us some small instrument as a present, and also our crewmates raided all the second-hand music shops in every stop. And when the life and the sights on board got too boring, then the nature offered us spectacular views, showing us all kind of life forms, especially whales. And very often happened that captain had his opstelling or the informational hour, and suddenly nobody cared about the captain anymore because you heard this sound, and everybody was like visually whale hunting. And the second was, of course, the icebergs. I think that this was one of the big keywords of this trip, the icebergs. Also, the first iceberg we saw somewhere between Iceland and Greenland, and we had this kind of competition on board. Who spots the first icebergs gets the bottle of wine from the captain.
Yeah.
So my crewmate, Scottish girl Vicky, was the winner. And yeah, I think that these are not the first icebergs. These are icebergs just outside Greenland. I think that the first iceberg was the object that we took most of the pictures from. So everybody was so amazed that we finally see an iceberg. Little did we know that we soon started to have this love-hate relationship with these icebergs. Because the closer to Greenland we got, and also further from Greenland, between Greenland and Newfoundland, we had so many of them that we couldn't count, and they started to pose a little threat of themselves. Because these big icebergs, our modern equipment and radars could pick them up, and you can see them even in the darkness quite well because they are so white. But there are also a lot of icebergs that you call crawlers, that are basically almost all underwater. Above the water is just maybe 20 centimeters, and you can't spot them before they are like right next to you. And sometimes you were standing there out on a watch, enjoying the view, and then suddenly you see out of nowhere this crawler, like on the size of a pickup truck or something quite big, and then the only thing to do is just like frantically tap to the radio and then yell, hard to board, and then pray that you miss it, or pray that the captain doesn't realize that how close we were. So luckily we didn't have close encounters in any of the icebergs, and we managed to avoid most of them. And we also used the technique that our follow ship was going right in front of us, and we tried to keep as close to her as possible, and so they would let us know when there are dangerous icebergs or crawlers. So I honestly can't imagine how they solved this during Viking Age, because we had torchlights and sometimes 3-4 people on watch on the very dangerous stretches of the journey. But for them it must have been so much harder. But maybe they had some kind of other sixth sense knowledge or feel about this. But the colors of the icebergs were amazing. I think I've never seen so many kind of different light blues than over there. And then when we kind of got rid of the icebergs, the heaviest storm hit. So it was just outside the Newfoundland, and we kind of felt that the struggle is almost over. We are almost there. Everybody knew that it's like a day and a half more, and it's good. And then the nature wasn't very forgiving. The North Atlantic wanted to say his last strong goodbye to us. And this was also, I remember that I was sleeping and I woke up for the sound of really heavy wave coming overboard. And I already started putting out my layers because I knew that it's a survival suit time. And less than 5 minutes later, David, my crewmate, came in and survival suit! and then it was, I think I have that. We tried to decrease our sail area as much as we could. As you can see, there was almost no sail area. We couldn't get this one to the Ra because it was just so windy. And even with basically no sail, we sailed with 6-7 knots.
Yeah.
So it was
Very windy.
quite a goodbye from the North Sea. And of course the survival suit time. And this was just outside the Newfoundland. We could already see the magical Vinland that the sagas had told us about. And this is kind of a reinterpretation of a painting that is painted about Leif Erikson and his team showing the land. So we did our own interpretation. And finally, as you see, we didn't get completely rid of the icebergs. We had them till the very end. They were not so dangerous. So all this journey from the beginning to the end took us a little over 5 weeks with the stops. We sailed out, as I said, on 26th of April, and we reached Newfoundland on 1st of June. And we're really happy. This was kind of my quick overview of all this, because it's such a big ship and so much happens, so it's kind of difficult to put it all in one. But I hope that you have questions about it, so I can address more specific details of the trip that you want to know.
Won't you show us videos?
Yeah, I can show you videos as we don't have any sound, so that you have time to take in all this bunch of information that I bursted out and form your questions if you want to ask them. We will watch a video from the very beginning of our journey. This is the early morning of the 26th of April. We finally sailed out from our home port Haugesund in the southwest coast of Norway. something goes wrong. The very first time we tried to raise the sail, one of the boarding us got stuck, so we spent about 20 minutes trying to get this one little knot loose.
We are now sailing close hauled. We left Norwegian coast like 12 hours ago. So we are heading to north of Shetland Islands. That is our goal. We're gonna be there till early tomorrow morning. If it goes like it does now. And the sea conditions is starting to get a little bit rougher, but so far it's fine. It's great to be on the way to the States. Of course, it's a lot of new things for many in the crew, and some seasickness and so. That is normal the first 48 hours or something. So that's nothing.
We've all been working very hard. We stretched the rig throughout the night. It was a bit too loose. I was called up from watch several times. Myself, I'm running on just maybe 2 hours of solid sleep. In between that, it was being woken up. And we're well over a day into our trip, and one of the first shroud on the starboard side had parted aloft just near the collar, I believe. We haven't really inspected it yet, but they rigged a temporary shroud with the Burton-like tackle that we have in the rig, just to sort of take the pressure off, and then we head downwind towards Shetland. So we're just about into Lervik now, and we're going to try to do repairs. The repairs are going to be, I mean, it's just one half of a shroud that parted. It's the forwardmost, and but in order to replace that shroud, we're probably going to have to step the mast. And during the Viking times, that would probably be a little bit easier than today. But now we have all this electronic equipment up there at the top of the mast, and it runs all the way down the backstay, and we have to have an electrician to uncouple that, pull the mast off with a crane, and take it ashore, and then have to take the whole rig off, because the first shroud is the lowest one down. It takes most of the pressure when the ship is rolling really hard.
The other one is from the end, and it's longer. It's like 8 minutes, so we can.
But do you have some storm stuff there?
Yes. Put together so that half of them, about 15, 16, are so-called professional sailors that have many experiences on either Viking ships or other kind of sailing ships, or are professional riggers, or so they are a hired crew. And half of the crew is volunteers who just apply and are elected from this. For this crossing, most of the volunteers had either been on this ship before or have been doing ocean crossing with some other ships. So I think, yeah, for this season, for none of us it was the first time, but for the previous season, yeah, sometimes people had very little experience before. Yeah.
Küsin eesti keeles, sest inglise keeles on võib-olla ma ei oska seda öelda. Et võrreldes 2013-ndaga, sa käisid ju ka peale meid, et kuidas ja nüüd ehitati ju teda ümber mingil määral. Kui palju, kas nagu purje käsitlemist nagu meetodid ja tehnikad ka muutusid, et kas te nagu, ma ei tea, ehitasite paitlased ümber või kas midagi siukest oli ka ja kui oli, siis mis? Et kuidas teistmoodi tegite?
So the question was that I was there, also Deep was there in 2013, and now several years later. So that, was there anything different, or was there anything that we had changed with the sail handling or with the maneuvering? Yeah, the cording system, or the system of the ropes that run vertically across the sail, and they help you to get the sail up to the row, was perfected, because at first it was just a big midship snake pit. So all of the cording were running down there. Now they run to the shrouds. Also the baitosis system, or the system where you attach your deck. Before it was two big baitoses across the foredeck, so every time you tacked, you had to change the position. So take all this big beam under, take it over. Now there is a construction in the middle of the foredeck, and the two baitoses come there. So all this bloody shifting around the baitoses is cancelled now. So they changed this one. And also definitely we are much better with the maneuvers, because as nobody has ever sailed a ship like this, then every day it's a learning, because there is a lot that you can copy or you can take over from previous experience in smaller Viking ships, but the scale is so much bigger that you have to kind of reinvent the wheel, so to say, and learn something new every day. And also every time there is a new person on board, you have to teach you. And as you go, you learn some more efficient ways. But yeah, I think we can. Yeah.
How did you preserve food?
Mostly we had on board two fridges, two fridge boxes with isolation, and mostly just in the food, like rice and pasta, were in watertight plastic jars or boxes. And under deck below, there was one picture that showed how we got. But during the crossing, it was no problem because it was so cold. So the whole ship was basically one big fridge. Everything kept so well. All the greens, everything. We could buy a lot of salads and vegetables and cucumber tomatoes, and it kept perfect because it was just a perfect food temperature.
You didn't row. You didn't.
No.
Row. Yeah.
This was also a question that we got asked a lot. So did you row? And even some news coverage in Denmark, of all the countries in Denmark and in Russia, in their news said that we rowed all across the North Atlantic. We did not. This ship has 25 pairs of oars, so 50 oars, and it can be rowed. But the full rowing crew is 100 men. And the setting that is there now, with a tent in the middle, cancels out some of the oar places, because the tent is so close to the railing, so there is no space. We had some oars with us on our follow ship, because the oars are bloody big and they take so much space, and we needed all this space for the food and for the tools and for the extra rigging and our own personal belongings. And also, you can't really row in the waves, because the waves just cancel out all your efforts, so it's no point of doing it. It's very tiring. We were lazy. Also, even with the full crew, I think that if you, for the short burst when everybody is fresh, you can maybe row with 100 men with 3.5 knots. But even with a quite light wind, with this kind of sail, and the sail area is about 260 square meters, you can get like 3-4 knots easily. And so it's much more efficient to sail than to row. And I personally think that even in Viking times they didn't row so much. For some reason there's an image in people's minds that Viking ships are rowing ships. But just the pure logic says that it's stupid. They probably rowed just in narrow places where it was hard to sail, going in and out of the harbors. Or sometimes when there was no wind, or sometimes just with a smaller ship it's also possible to help out with the maneuvers with just putting out one side of the oars. So just to make the tacking maneuver a little bit faster. Yeah, we showed, we rowed just for show in Canada and in America a couple of times, with just a couple of times. I also cheated with a little bit of engine power. Yes.
How high against the wind can you say?
Normally about 60 degrees with a right current. I think the record is about 40. With a really good steady wind and a current helping. And the top speed for the ship has also been with a current but 40 knots. This season the top speed was 12. Yes.
Yeah, you said that the Viking ships are built to sort of just go like this on the waves.
Yes.
Yeah. So was there any threat or possibility that someone could just fall overboard when you were going on the Star?
Definitely.
How did you avoid that?
Also, this ship has quite high railings. I think that the railings are about this high from deck level. It was still, there are so many ropes on board, so you can just get stuck with some rope and just float overboard. Or sometimes still, also the ship surfs on top of the waves. Sometimes either with wrong steering techniques or just like random gales, you can still crash into the wave and have a lot of fun. You just had to be really aware of yourself, and seasick people had to clip themselves to the security rope that ran through the, and so if anybody was seasick, so somebody yelled at, "Clip him to the railing!" Because sometimes you're so seasick that you have to throw up before you can actually like meddle with all this zero clipping. So this was a thing, 2 things. You go and check that this person is clipped, and then you go and take her some water, which is also important. But yeah, not only falling overboard was a threat, but I think the most dangerous thing was all the blocks and ropes and sails and everything that flew around during the maneuvers. Because especially with such a big ship, something always goes a little bit wrong in some cases. So you lose some ropes and some blocks are flying. There is a quote from one of our crewmates that Draken is a ship where everything can kill you. I think it's true. So you just have to be really aware of yourself. You have to know the danger zones. There are definitely danger zones, and most of us learned to walk like this, even when the sail was down, because it was just a reflex. Because you can heal your broken arm probably better, or you can live with broken heart better than with broken head. So just float like this. So if something hits you, you can get your arm into your head.
I think that goes for the same. My grandmother's stepfather was sailing on the wheat trade from Britain to Australia, and when they lost someone at sea, they just went. Not sailing.
Yeah, because
yeah, if someone went overboard.
Yeah, we had the follow ship that had the rescue boat and everything.
they
But
had-
in the sea, you lose the sight of the person so quickly that everybody made really sure not to fall overboard.
So you didn't have anyone going overboard?
No, not deliberately. We did few of them, and maybe some of the crew members would have liked to test out the knowledge we have from Viking times navigation, and we tried a little bit of this during our test sailing on 2013 or 2014. This time we relied only on the modern equipment, and this was the captains and the first mates all. We just had to follow the order. We didn't have a very hierarchical system on board, so it was like pretty horizontal power structure, but still what concerned about the navigation and the choosing of the route, this was captain and the mates, and their word was the rule.
When you talk about the boat, or a ship, you refer to her as her.
Yes.
But if the ship is named after a king of Norway, is it the right way how to name her?
Come on, that's fine.
At first, this was also like a little bit of dilemma for myself, because I hadn't been sailing so much, so I wasn't so familiar with the sailors' vocabulary. Yeah. Somehow it is. The ship is called the Draken Harald Harfagre after the first Norwegian Viking king who united all the Norway, but we still call it for her because everybody calls ships her.
But referring as a ship to her, it's a British tradition from the late 19th century. Naval officers referred to naval ships as her. Before that,
But they called it men at arms.
before that, a ship was a hen. It's called in Sweden, not female, not female, but yeah. And my belief is that referring to a ship as a her is due to dirty thinking by British naval officers. That's my point.
But that I find hard to believe, because as I said, men at arms or Indian men, or usually men is the name of the tall ship.
Come on.
It's a well recorded thing.
Have I ever lied to you?
Once. When you promise that you won't get drunk. But it's a small lie.
Now maybe we can watch the other video, and if anybody has more questions, we can talk about it after that one.
And no kids are little.
This is now between Greenland and Newfoundland.
Yeah, we have just left Greenland now for Newfoundland, and it's a little bit rough, but not too bad. We are heading in Leif Eriksson's footsteps, and we are definitely trying to find where he was settled in Newfoundland. We are close holded on starboard tack, and we have tacked down 210 degrees down to Newfoundland. Yeah, we have a lot of icebergs around here now, and growlers. We are actually more afraid for growlers than for iceberg, because the iceberg we can see very clear. But it's a point to go out early in the morning here from Greenland and go out through the ice belt when it's daylight. They're high. They're much higher than the rig here. Beautiful sight. And a lot of icebergs up here also.
It, not she. It. So it's what? Radio Patricia being aboard. Yes,
Karena mereka di suara mereka lagi.
Rocket ship start. The predictions before we left, we were told were 16 meters a second, and it was definitely more than that. Our anemometer was reading 20 and sometimes up to 25 meters a second, which is a storm.
Every moment is very, very dangerous in this weather, so we have to be very, very careful and take it very, very easy.
Can you cast up the traveler for the truss? The Rakulpan or downhaul? Doing good. Putting on a little gearing here for the second reef. Wind's picking up, so going in the reef again.
2 reefs in the bond were taken away on the sail. And we were close also, we had a lot of water over the deck and sometimes even over the stern. Some waves were just in that right direction to bring water right over. But it was quite amazing to be sailing in 20 meters a second with 2 or 3 meter seas and icebergs all around.
Just when we were putting on the survival suits, I was going into the forward tent and I got the wave coming with all the spray over my clothes. So I started out with everything wet, and in those moments it's really hard to pick up like positive energy because you know it's not gonna dry, and in order to get your other things you need to go down into your bag again, and those kind of small things that would be sort of okay on another ship is almost a catastrophe for you here.
Yes, it's really cold, and that's why I have these to tuck my hands in right after we're finished with handling the ropes. Since it's cold, I lose my sensation in fingertips when we're working on handling the ropes. I prefer to work without gloves. I take them off when we're pulling ropes because you have contact with the rope. You can feel it and feel what's going on when you not have gloves on.
On the bar. On the feathers. What's no problem? Well, I told my wife, it's no good than the nice something interesting. And the Vikings had something.
Yeah, really good winds, and that's why it's really fun to sail as well. When we have these winds that just makes the ship fly almost on top of the waves. So I had a little adrenaline rush maybe, especially at the lookouts, looking for the icebergs and the water coming over, and yeah, and all the winds.
No bloody way Vikings were in the ship, in the seas. You were on the ship, cut it off. You're always exposed, not like at the ships where you just can go down below, forget about whatever you're doing or whatever they're doing, just cut out. You can't do that here.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what size boats can actually handle seas like that. But if I was a Viking, I would have turned right the fuck around and come back.
Just wait for the...
No, wait for the wind and the sun.
I forgot I've been holding this book. It's a little picture book of the crossing. So you can put here, so you can check it and read it on the table afterwards. And if anybody has any more questions, then you can either ask me now or find me later. I will be here today till around 9. Thank you.